Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Arjun Chaudhary. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Thursday, the 9th of October. India will make Pakistan's adventurism unaffordable, says Defence Minister. Expectations running high ahead of India's industrial output data. And death toll in Pakistan's toxic liquor consumption rises to 27. And now for all the details. India's Defence Minister Arun Jaitley has warned Pakistan after a spike in cross-border shooting at the line of control in northern Jammu and Kashmir. In the recent case of ceasefire violation, at least 12 Indian civilians succumbed to Pakistan's shelling and firing.
People living along the border of India-controlled Jammu and Kashmir have had their lives turned upside down after Pakistan had allegedly started firing and shelling their villages on Sunday. The continued attacks have forced thousands of farmers and their families to flee their homes to safety. And in what officials have called the worst violation of the 2003 ceasefire accord, Pakistan has been targeting not just soldiers but civilians too. India has sent out a stern warning to its western neighbour.
If Pakistan persists with this adventurism, our forces will make the cost of this adventurism unaffordable.
The standoff between the two nuclear-armed South Asian countries had deteriorated early Monday when Pakistan's heavy firing had killed and injured Indians in their sleep. The latest spike in India-Pakistan hostilities started barely a week after Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi had called for peace talks with Pakistan in his United Nations address. But Mr. Modi had also insisted that Islamabad create an appropriate atmosphere for the dialogue to begin. India had earlier pulled out of the high-level talks with Pakistan after the Pakistani High Commissioner had met with Kashmiri separatists ahead of the meeting in August. Some 20,000 villagers along border areas have taken refuge in makeshift relief camps. And with winter approaching, they are hoping the crossfire will end soon so that they can return to the safety of their homes.
The death toll in Pakistan's toxic liquor consumption rose to 27 on Thursday. This is the second such incident in over a week in Pakistan, a country where alcohol consumption is strictly banned among Muslims.
While 4 more people lost their lives on Thursday, the condition of 26 others is reportedly still critical. The victims were admitted to a Karachi hospital after consuming toxic alcohol on Wednesday. They were celebrating the 3-day public holiday of Eid ul-Adha. Doctors said the death toll could go up as many are still undergoing treatment.
इस वक्त हस्पताल में 15 मरीज दाखिल हैं, लेकिन सबकी कंडीशन हम नहीं कह सकते कि ठीक है, ज़्यादातर पेशेंट्स जो हैं वो क्रिटिकल हैं.
Police said the victims had taken toxic alcohol from an illegal brewery in the city. The raw liquor is prepared at unlicensed small breweries located in private houses, particularly in the slum areas of Pakistan. Wednesday's incidents happened a week after 20 people reportedly died after drinking poisoned booze in the southern city of Hyderabad, some 100 miles from Karachi. Pakistan has imposed a ban on sale of alcohol for Muslims since 1977, but illicit home-brewed liquor is available across the country in underground markets.
Even as the people of Pakistan occupied Kashmir struggle to restore normalcy to their lives after the recent floods, the memory of the 2005 earthquake remains fresh on their minds. Many accuse the Pakistan government for not doing enough during one of the most devastating calamities in the region.
9 years have passed when a deadly earthquake struck Pakistan-occupied Kashmir or POK. But even now, people complain of receiving no help from the government to rebuild their lives. On the 9th anniversary of the 2005 earthquake, residents of Balakot demonstrated against the Pakistani regime for turning a blind eye to the catastrophe. The earthquake completely destroyed the remote town, claiming over 20,000 lives. This came as POK President Sardar Yaqub Khan and Prime Minister Chaudhry Abdul Majid remained conspicuous by their absence during the annual prayers to pay tribute to earthquake on Wednesday. Nationalist leaders blame Pakistan for its continued apathy towards this part of the Himalayan region.
जब भी ज़ाहिर कोई नेचुरल डिज़ास्टर होता है तो उसमें तो नुकसानात तो बेशुमार होते हैं और हमारे यहाँ अनफॉर्चुनेटली उस तरह का सेटअप ही नहीं है कि उसके लिए प्रिपेयर हूँ.
POK was a part of the erstwhile princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan, which invaded the Himalayan region in October 1947, has since treated POK as its colony. A 7.6 magnitude earthquake killed around 73,000 people in POK and northwestern Pakistan on 8 October 2005. To maintain an iron curtain, Pakistan blocked international help to the region, leaving infrastructure in shambles.
2005 में जब अर्थक्वेक आया, लोग वहाँ पे गए, इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी गई हेल्प के लिए. इस्लामाबाद जब पहुँचे तो उन्होंने कहा भाई आप लोग तो आगे नहीं जा सकते. उन्होंने कहा कि क्यों? उन्होंने कहा ये तो एक सिक्योरिटी जोन है, तो इसमें तो फॉरेनर्स अलाउड नहीं है. तो जो वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज़ थी, US और यहाँ यूरोपियन कंट्रीज सारी, उन्होंने उनको कहा भाई हम तो उनको हेल्प के लिए आए हैं तो हमने तो जाना है, हमें एक्सेस दीजिए.
Khan condemned Pakistan for even rejecting help from India during the recent floods.
इंडियन प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने कहा कि अगर आपको हमारी हेल्प की ज़रूरत है तो हम मतलब जो पाकिस्तान का ज़ेर इंतज़ाम कश्मीर में उसके लोगों की हेल्प कर सकते हैं. तो उन्होंने डिनाई कर दिया क्योंकि कश्मीरी का खून, कश्मीरी की ज़िंदगी, कश्मीरी की ज़मीन बड़ी सस्ती है. उनको तो पानियों से ताल्लुक़ है, नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज से ताल्लुक़ है.
The government has claimed that it has spent millions to improve infrastructure, but people blame the nexus of corrupt Pakistani bureaucrats, politicians and army officials for siphoning off these funds.
India has issued a warning to Pakistan against using forged polio vaccination certificates to apply for visas. This comes as Pakistan continues to struggle to counter the spread of the endemic disease. At least 2 polio workers died in a blast in northwest Pakistan on Wednesday.
New Delhi has stepped up surveillance on Pakistanis travelling to India. The Indian High Commission in Pakistan has taken notice of forged polio certificates being submitted with visa applications. It issued a statement on Wednesday stating that fake visa applications would be rejected and warned that such applicants would be permanently denied entry to India. Visa applicants are being looked upon closely to comply strictly with polio certification requirements. Pakistan is one of the few countries in the world where the polio is still endemic. It continues to witness attacks on polio vaccinating staff. A roadside bomb blast in northwest Pakistan on Wednesday killed 2 people. The attack took place along the Afghan border where Taliban militants are active. The total number of polio cases recorded in Pakistan this year has already crossed 200. The spread of the wild type 1 polio virus continues ever since the Taliban banned vaccination for it in areas under its control. In 2012, it called it a Western plot to sterilize Muslims. The United Nations had in May this year imposed a travel ban on Pakistanis to prevent the spread of polio globally.
Despite a ban imposed by the Pakistani authorities on terror suspect organizations collecting animal hides after Eid, reports suggest that some groups have still been able to procure these items without any hindrance. These organizations divert the money collected in the name of charity to fund terror activities. A report.
Several charity organizations have sprung up across Pakistan to collect the hides of animals sacrificed during Eid ul-Zuha this year. But many of them are proxies of terror outfits. 24 organizations, including the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, Sipah-e-Sahaba Pakistan, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Islamic Student Movement were barred from collecting skins last week. Maulana Ahmad Ludhianvi's Sipah-e-Sahaba was openly collecting hides in capital Islamabad under its charity wing Ahl-e-Sunnat wal Jamaat after Eid on Monday. The Lashkar-e-Toiba, led by dreaded militant leader Hafiz Saeed, was also reported to be collecting donations and animal skins via its charity unit, the Jamaat-ud-Dawa. These organizations earn an estimated $200,000 annually from the skin collection alone, which is then canalized into the funding of terror. For many years, the Pakistani governments have tried to ban the terror outfits from collecting animal hides, but despite that, it continues to be a roaring business year after year. Eid ul-Zuha, the sacrificial festival, sees nearly 10 million animals being sacrificed annually. A hide which fetches $50 to $60 acts as a lifeline to the country's leather industry, which collects nearly 30% of its annual raw material during Eid.
Millions of tribals who fled Pakistan's volatile North Waziristan region following military operation against the Pakistan Taliban have vowed to stage massive protests for rehabilitation. They've also threatened to march to Islamabad if the demands are not met.
Internally displaced persons or IDPs living in temporary shelters in northwestern Peshawar held a tribal jirga or meeting of elders to seek immediate rehabilitation. The tribesmen and people's representatives who attended the gathering said IDPs should be allowed to return to their homes.
90% इलाके क्लियर हो चुके हैं, तो ये हमारे लोगों का ये सबसे पहला मुतालबा यही है कि अगर वो इलाके क्लियर हो चुके हैं और वहाँ मन है तो हमें अपने घरों को जाने दें.
Many complained about the administration and the media not showing or expressing enough concern towards their plight.
जब ये धरने का सिस्टम शुरू हो गया इस्लामाबाद में, तो इसकी वजह से पूरी तवज्जो स्पेशली मीडिया की और जो हुकूमती थी सूबाई और फेडरल, इनकी तवज्जो हट गई, उधर इस्लामाबाद पे फोकस हो गई.
The displaced people said a grand jirga, which will be meeting in Banu next week, will decide about holding a protest in capital Islamabad. The tribesmen said it will take at least 2 more years for their lives to normalize and urged the government to extend the essential support to them. Millions had fled the tribal belts of Pakistan after Operation Zarbeaz was launched on June 15 this year. Many have been living in makeshift shelters and government schools across neighbouring provinces without even basic facilities.
Ahead of India's industrial production data scheduled to be released on Friday, economists are expecting output to grow 2.2%, bouncing back from a 4-month low of 0.5% reached in August. They're still being very cautious in their optimism.
An increase in the production in cement, coal and steel is why economists are hopeful about a turnaround in the manufacturing sector. They're also applauding higher output in some mines and utilities.
The industrial atmosphere and the atmosphere for corporate sector has changed for better in the country. There's a feel-good factor in the corporate sector, in the industrial world, in the manufacturing world, because of the government's new initiatives, positive initiatives. So that could reflect somewhat in the IIP number. So my conclusion would be that perhaps there could be a very slight improvement in the IIP number.
Analysts may be expecting output data to bump up, but they're still concerned about the economic reality. That's because production was also driven by a weak monsoon season, which allowed construction activity to continue longer. In fact, commentators say the investment optimism that followed Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the top may fade unless the PM starts launching major reforms. Investment is still weaker than many would like, borrowing costs are still high, and new orders have slowed down. And of course, inflation is still a key concern for authorities, including the Reserve Bank of India.
In the meantime, Indian stock markets ended its 3-session losing streak on Thursday, closing at a positive note on the expectation of a good outcome ahead of Friday's industrial output figures. The broader National Stock Exchange and Nifty ended the day's business at 7,960.55 points, a higher 1.5%. The Bombay Stock Exchange, a BSE Sensex, also closed at 26,637.28 points, up by 1.49%. The Indian rupee bettered its position against the US dollar and closed at 60.29. Thursday's gains were a result of the US Federal Reserve's hint of keeping the interest rates low. The top gainers of the day were BHEL, Hindalco and ACC. Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude the top stories once again. India will make Pakistan's adventurism unaffordable, says Defence Minister. Expectations running high ahead of India's industrial output data. And death toll in Pakistan's toxic liquor consumption rises to 27. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.